Okay, the seventh acrylic and tempera painting technique that you might use is called dry brush. Dry brush is no water, and you wipe it off on a paper towel first. You're basically making a texture. So, I'm going to take my paint and get it mixed on my palette. And then, I'm going to take my brush, and if you've been using it and it's wet, just kind of dry it off as much as you can with a paper towel. You just don't want to add any more water to it. So if it's got a little bit of moisture in it, just wipe it off with your paper towel. Get it as dry as you can. Okay, now, I'm going to get just a little bit of paint on the tip. It doesn't take much. Just a little bit on the tip. Now I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to wipe most of it off. Now I can paint with this, and it's just going to make a texture. Usually, if you don't want that white underneath to show, you're going to paint a color first with a wet brush, and then you will do dry brush on top. And it just kind of makes a rough texture. You can't see that very well. Let's see if I zoom in, if you can see it. There you go. So it's just picking up. I got rid of that if it will show a little better. You can see it a little bit better. You can see that it's rough texture. It's not a solid line. I'll switch colors, see if I can get it to show up a little bit better. I'll switch to green. So I'm going to get just a little bit of green on the tip of my brush. And then I'll wipe most of it on the paper towel. Oh, there we go. That's a little better. It just kind of makes that texture, that rough texture in there. It's not a solid line. Just a tiny little bit on the tip of my brush. The main thing to do is make sure you wipe enough of it off on your paper towel that it isn't a solid line. You're just making kind of a rough texture. There we go. Now you can see that a little better. See how it's broken up. Then you clean out your brush. And I let my masking fluid dry overnight. So now I'm going to go back to my masking fluid. And I'm going to paint right across on top of that now. So I'm just going to go across the whole thing. You can do this with a little bit of water in your brush. You can do this with a watered down paint. You could do this with dry brush to get a texture under there. I'm just going to paint this whole thing. And I'm going to throw a little bit of blue in there, I think. So I'm going to clean up my brush before I dip it in the blue. I'm going to grab my blue. That kind of mixed in a little bit there on that side, just to give it a little bit of variation in color, so I get kind of a blue-green. Mixes in there a little bit. Okay, and then I got to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm just going to peel up, kind of rub it with my finger, or I'm going to rub it with an eraser. I'm just going to peel that up off of there. That wax resist, you don't want to leave that on there, and it's not dry enough yet. Wait for it to dry a little more. Still too wet. Hasn't dried enough yet. Now it might rip your paper a little bit, so be careful. Think about which way you're rolling it. You're rubbing it off of there. You do the same thing with rubber cement. You just rub it off. And you can see that it's preserving the white underneath. And it rips on my paper too because my paint's still wet. I should wait a little longer.